An interesting way of gauging the trust in the mainstream church for our time is the engagement with and general ratings of the news outlets that cover them. After all, these outlets represent the voice of the mainstream church, to a large extent. They, like their secular counterparts, rely on access to stay relevant, and as a result, cannot take the more adversarial approach with specific figures and movements within the hierarchy that, say, a podcaster or YouTube analyst can. At least that has been the popular and unspoken theory for some time. But this weekend, the biggest name in Catholic media made waves when they swept away much of their high-profile figures in order to bring in some fresh faces. In fact, this caused such a stir on, where else but Twitter, that it has fueled speculation that the biggest name may be shifting so slightly towards tradition. We'll see about that. Let's explore this theory to see if it has any merit. But as an aside, I wanted to say that if you like these messages and this breaking down of news stories that I do here and then connecting them to other stories so you get the bigger picture, all presented in one easy place in short format, consider supporting the work of this channel, which you can do on Patreon, Subscribestar, or by clicking the join button below, just below the video screen here on YouTube. And you can do it for as little as $1 American each month, and it goes a long way to keeping these messages coming, especially in these increasingly strange times that we live in. Also, if you're new, click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you know about everything going on here at Return to Tradition. Thanks. So, EWTN. Without a doubt, they are the biggest provider of news of the Catholic Church in the world, reaching some 70 million households, according to a 2017 article from the National Catholic Register that has weirdly been deleted since. That sounds like a lot of viewers, but consider for a second this. Any YouTube channel you like reaches roughly twice its subscriber base, at least directly. Yes, twice. Only about half of those who subscribe to any channel watch the daily video, but likely watch a few a week, while each video gets about 45 to 55% of its viewers from non-subscribers. That's true for any channel across the board, and YouTube reaches billions of people around the world. Now, factor in someone like, Dr. Taylor Marshall, who regularly hits 100,000 views or more, while the regular EWTN broadcast almost certainly does not, and you begin to get a sense of what the network might be thinking. Combined with general viewership statistics that certainly skew towards an older audience, and network managers are probably trying to figure out how to reach the broader audience, and some of the shows on that network conflict with that goal. Remember that as we begin to look at the shakeup at EWTN. I'm not going to use secular language for describing the bent of EWTN because that sort of language is always of limited application when talking about the church, especially when the figures in the church try to be actually faithful Catholics. But at the most obvious level, EWTN is hierarchy-friendly. Think the hermeneutic of continuity. Think Bishop Robert Barron types as the most friendly to this audience's typical position, rather than a Vigano or the bishop from Kazakhstan. Think more Benedict XVI and the more Catholic-sounding things Francis says sometimes, than, say, a Pope St. Pius X. On EWTN, you'll find very, very little in the way of any commentary challenging the Second Vatican Council, and instead you'll find language used to defend the Council in the framing of Benedict XVI. And for a long, long time, that worked for EWTN. It worked rather nicely, in fact. But those things change, and in the last 2 years or so, something happened. YouTube. Taylor Marshall, Church Militant, The Remnant, Restoring the Faith, and some weird guy with shades on, and a bunch of others started making noise over on this platform, and those channels are all rapidly growing. How did that happen? It's simple, really. All too many Catholics realize that there is something seriously off in the church, to put it mildly, to put it way too mildly, and they went looking for answers that EWTN, CNA, and other outlets simply are not providing. Even worse, they found EWTN playing footsie with Caesar way too much. Case in point, Gloria Purvis. I'm not going to go too much into what she talks about or who she is, but she was one of the ones that EWTN is no longer supporting. She caused the biggest stir when that show ended. The biggest driving factor for any television show ending is its ratings or lack thereof, but her vocal supporters cried the R word. Because of course they did. Why would her ratings be poor? It might be because on a Benedict XVI style network, her show specialized in repeating the talking points of the agents of chaos and promoting the narrative of those sowing the most chaos in society right now, and then implying that if those watching didn't agree with her take on issues related to the flesh, they were the ones in the wrong, not her. This is revealed in the fact that the likes of Mark Shea, Don Goldstein, Jim Gaffigan, and numerous others have come out to try to pressure EWTN to bring her back by demanding that their clips and interviews be pulled from the network archives, which isn't how it works. To go on a show like that, you agree to let the network keep your programming in the archive, that they own the copyright, not you. I mean, this is basic stuff, and either these folks don't know that, or they're using the typical tactic of trying to pressure them into giving in. Either way, it's laughable. I honestly haven't any idea why any of these people are relevant. But Purvis wasn't the only one. Father Larry Richards no longer has a program on EWTN. Father Richards has a history of not liking traditional Catholics, and he has a history of getting into some tussles with church militant. They've covered that enough from their perspective ad nauseum. I won't comment on the church militant Father Richards situation. Instead, I'm going to remind you of this. This is the same priest who made waves a few years ago when he gave a conference talk where he spit on the notion of what he called very Catholic families with many kids who want a daily mass, people who are pious but don't like Pope Francis because he's not their kind of pope. To paraphrase again what he himself said. If you haven't seen that clip, it's in today's show notes on my sources blog at returntotradition.org. It's copyrighted, and I really don't feel like playing copyright claim roulette with another outlet right now. But Father Richard's brand, if you will, is manliness and that sort of thing. And honestly, that's fine. We do need more of that, but without hostility to those Catholics who are trying to live lives in accordance with the timeless faith, and who, in these times of confusion and diabolic disorientation, are trying to seek the truth. The problem is that with these two figures, the priest and Gloria Purvis, there is a real issue of not accepting reality. And for Father Richards, that reality is this. The church is in desperate need of leadership that is more traditional than Benedict ever was. The church needs a firm hand, one that will act like the vicar of Christ, not the vicar of fraternity. And until that happens, and until EWTN addresses that need in some way, many Catholics will seek information elsewhere. It's just the nature of things. The other figure no longer part of the EWTN family is J.D. Flynn, the now former head of CNA, who was one of the print arms of EWTN. Of the three, he's the least well known to most Catholics, but CNA has taken, again, a very friendly perspective to the Vatican. CNA feigns neutrality, but its vegano coverage kind of gives the game away at least a little bit by subtly casting doubt on some of his accounts about McCarrick and Vatican II and the rest of it. That was CNA's prerogative, and now it appears that CNA is reaping the rewards for it. What direction will they take when their new editor comes in? Who knows? But this will be interesting purely from the perspective of someone who uses their stories to report to you, mainly me. So stay tuned. What direction is EWTN going to take? That's a good question. Some insiders have suggested to me that they're going to shift ever so slightly trad. The earliest signs of this are in the masses they televise. They are still Novus Ordo, to be sure, but altar rails and communion on the tongue is being brought in. That's a good sign in general, but the Mass has to be one of the least viewed things on EWTN, outside of 2020 anyway. They've announced new programs from Kimberly Hahn, Montserrat Alvarado, who is a Catholic who also serves as the Vice President and Executive Director of the Ebwtn, which points to the type of issues they expect to see in the near future. And I don't need to tell you that the Hahns are certainly popular, and that the kinds of issues the Ebwtn addresses are going to be major in America in the near future. But what else is coming from them? We'll see. So again, stay tuned. What do you think of all this? Is this all just smoke and mirrors from a flailing network? Is a shift more towards slightly trad-friendly content a good sign? Is this trad-friendly material at all? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.